Brazil is the biggest nation in the South American continent. It is a newly emerging economy which is rich in a variety of natural resources, being the world's leading producer of tin, iron ore and phosphate. It has large deposits of diamonds, manganese, chromium, copper, bauxite and many other minerals. Some believe that Brazil will develop into a global power. Let's take a deeper look at its economy. To look at a country's position today, it's important to take a deeper look at their history. In the 1500s, Europeans first began colonizing the Americans. Over the next 2 centuries, 2 major colonies were established along the Atlantic coast. Britain's 13 colonies entered around North America and Portugal's colony, Brazil, in South America. The 13 colonies gained independence in 1776, forming the United States of America, and Brazil followed suit in 1822, gaining independence from Portugal. With the newfound freedom, both countries now had the potential to become global powers. However, as history progressed, both countries took different routes. While the US became an industrialized nation and expanded westwards, taking more territory and attracted immigration from countries such as Ireland under a free democratic system, Brazil maintained a mostly agricultural economy powered by slaves and low-paid labor under a flawed government. This led to a slow-growing economy, highly dependent on prices for commodities which are raw such as oil, sugar and wood. The reliance created instability within the economy and didn't allow the country to develop. While the US expanded and eventually became the dominant global superpower, Brazil's economy still lagged behind. However, more recently, Brazil's economy is developing and could lead to it becoming a global superpower. Since the 1960s, the growth of Brazil's agriculture, mining, livestock, and manufacturing industries have led to tremendous economic growth. So much so that between the decades of 1960 and 2010, Brazil's real GDP increased 904% from $286 billion to $2.9 trillion. In the 1990s, the government successfully put an end to a period of intense hyperinflation and established a new currency called the Brazilian real. Throughout the 2000s, the real increased in value and Brazil entered an economic boom, which was fueled by an increased demand for commodities by other countries such as India and China. However, in mid-2014, global prices of commodities decreased and at the same time inflation rates increased. And after a scandal that Dilma Rousseff, the 36th president of Brazil, was impeached, the real quickly lost value, leading to Brazil entering a 2-year-long recession. The economy began recovering until 2020, when it once again dropped due to the coronavirus pandemic. As a result of these events, many analysts think that the country is stuck in the same economic state, called the middle income trap. However, Brazil's production industries, such as its agriculture, mining, food processing and manufacturing industries, along with its service sector, are all growing quickly. A new wave of developing countries will provide demand for its vast supply of commodities. Brazil is well equipped to accelerate the economic growth of itself, and by 2050, Brazil is projected to be the 4th largest economy in the world, with a nominal GDP of $11.4 trillion. While Brazil's economy expands, its population will peak over the next 20 years. Brazil's population is projected to grow slowly before peaking at 230 million in 2043. The population growth will help the nation as it gives it a young workforce. This slow population growth, along with the large potential for economic growth, indicates that a major increase in Brazil's GDP per capita and quality of life is highly likely. In fact, by the year 2050, it's expected that the country will have a GDP per capita of around $50,000, almost 5 times the current GDP per capita now. Beyond the population and economic growth that Brazil is expected to have, its political influence is also expected to grow. It hosts 49% of the continent's population and contains 48% of its land area, so it's no surprise that Brazil established itself as the principal regional power of South America. It exerts influence over its neighbours and through the Union of South American Nations, and trades with them through the MERCOSUR trade bloc. On a global stage in 2006, it joined with Russia, India, China and South Africa to import parts from the BRICS, which is an acronym for the 5 major emerging economies in the world. This has catapulted Brazil onto the global stage and has led to an increase in global trade and economic activity. While its political influence increases, Brazil maintains a strong military, which has consistently strengthened itself for over the past 20 years as the country maintains a defence spending budget of around 1.5% of its GDP. The consistent spending has allowed the military to expand to a stage where it is the 9th strongest military in the world. In reality, it is unlikely that it will put its military into major use anytime soon, as Brazil is a relatively peaceful country and enjoys secure geographic situation, so it doesn't really require constant protection. Despite this, the military will most likely continue to expand, potentially becoming one of the strongest in the world. Further, Brazil's cultural influence has exploded. Over the past 2 decades, tourism in Brazil has rapidly increased. In fact, from 1996 to 2018, international tourist spending increased from $744 million to $6.3 billion, representing a 7.5-fold increase. Brazil has amazing cities like Rio de Janeiro, with amazing landmarks like the Christ the Redeemer, festivals like the Carnival, and its scenery like its stunning mountains and beaches, has become a tourist hotspot. Beyond Rio de Janeiro, cities in the Amazon rainforest like Sao Paulo are attracting growing numbers of tourists, leading to the rise of ecotourism, which is when tourists contribute to the natural environment and explore the environment in a way that doesn't negatively impact it. We also cannot forget the FIFA 2014 World Cup and the 2016 Summer Olympics, which have solidified Brazil as a top global tourist destination. Tourism also spreads Brazilian culture. Brazilian cuisine has found an expanding global market, and their music and dance have countless distinct styles, including samba and capoeira, and even movies such as Rio have spread the image of Brazil globally. Brazil's economic power is also establishing itself around the world. Brazilian multinational corporations are some of the largest in the world. JBS is the largest meat processing company in the world. It has purchased other large companies in South America and the United States, and it now serves 110 countries in the world. Its large size means it is almost in direct control over the global meat supply. Petrobras, which is the state-owned petroleum corporation, operates in more than 25 countries around the world and is the largest company in South America. Vale is the 5th largest iron ore and nickel producer in the world and the 5th largest mining company in the world. It operates in nearly 30 countries. Although that we've seen the population, economy, the cultural and political influence of Brazil is increasing, there are still many problems and difficulties that the country has to solve. Poverty is a major issue in the country. Almost 1/5 of Brazil's population lives off less than $5.50 a day. Cities like Rio de Janeiro have many favelas, which are low-income settlements that usually have a high amount of crime. Although some action has been taken to improve these areas, such as increasing police presence in order to combat crime, these areas are often neglected by the government. In addition to this, another issue that Brazil faces is education, and on a global level, Brazil is still underperforming. Brazil also suffers from environmental damage. Whilst an increase in farming, livestock production, mining and logging is beneficial for the economy, these industries are detrimental to the environment if they are not controlled properly. Deforestation, particularly in the Amazon rainforest, is very high. In fact, during the 2 decades from 2000 to 2020, it has affected 8% of the Amazon rainforest, which means that an area the size of Spain has been logged. This is very dangerous, as the Amazon is known as the lungs of the world, affecting world climate patterns. Also, deforestation affects the habitats of animals and decreases biodiversity in the area. However, despite the huge scale at which deforestation is occurring in Brazil, after lots of international pressure, it seems that the rate of deforestation is steadily decreasing in the Amazon. Brazil's economy faces a large problem: monopolies. Although the huge transnational corporations increase the influence of Brazil in the other countries, they make it almost impossible to compete with them in the domestic market, thus limiting the growth of local businesses. Further, as we mentioned earlier, Brazil has many natural resources and commodities. However, it seems as if the country is still very reliant on them, which becomes an issue as the prices of commodities fluctuate a lot. In the government, corruption is a major issue. Transnational corporations pay politicians and funds meant to benefit the local population are taken by the politicians for their own personal gain. Currently, the population is increasing and the workforce is young in Brazil. But in 20 years' time, the workforce will be on the decline as the aging population increases in the country, creating further issues for the economy. And more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected Brazil. Its GDP fell by 4.1% in 2020. The pandemic was really bad during 2021 and it has increased hunger across the country. Fortunately, vaccines are being distributed and will hopefully lower cases soon. Even though Brazil is facing many problems, it has the potential to become one of the world's biggest economies and a superpower on the global stage. What do you think about Brazil? Will it become a global superpower? Let us know in the comments below and I'll try to reply to every single one. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and drop a comment, and do hit the bell button as well so you're notified every time we upload a video. Until next time, goodbye.